Okay, you're live.
All right, hit it.
Awesome. What? All right. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome. See a lot of familiar faces. I taught last week's class. Stuck with me again this week. So. So it should be a real fun class. We're going over hummingbirds. We'll start off with a little bit of news. A lot of folks is kind of carry over from last week. Most of it last week or anyone kind of new. Just good stuff to kind of get established, get a feel for kind of what's going on, what you can do to. So I'll start off just kind of a brief little intro about hummingbirds. Yeah. So brief little intro about me, why you're stuck with me here, and in next week it will be pretty much a full 10 years. This started for me as a high school job. I was local between high school, ended up working all the way through working here all the way through college. After college, moved away into being in California, contract work over there. Came back in between contracts, and they asked if I wanted to start here and kind of keep working here, and said yes, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, I've been working here 10 years. I currently manage about 6 different departments, so I do know quite a bit about a little bit. So yeah, if you have any questions about the class, try and save it towards the end. As you can see, it's a very full class. So yeah, but if something if you need to catch my attention, just raise your hand. And, so yeah. But I also wanted to say, I mentioned this yesterday. I do consider this to be out there and speak. If I I'm not necessarily a public speaker. It's not my initial go-to, but I yeah, I love being able to kind of be a part of uh, really genuinely enjoy that. So thank you. Yeah, yeah. As Thomas, just wanted to kind of start off with one of the biggest things right now is the back to roses, some of the trees, we want to do a bit of shading. Now it is we usually say late February to early March. We are just here's prime. Yeah, but about a week or so left before mid March, and then full spring. So yes, now it's time to do your fruit. These are the two plants that you kind of want to be hesitant about fruiting, or that you don't want to actually fruit this time. So don't be like this thing guy right here, because it just starts to you don't want to put it right now. Hang off a little bit later, then soil preparation is another thing this time of year. If you're doing raised beds, this here, keeping in mind that it's really, really hot here. Most pots, it's especially in a dark covered container. That sunburn in the afternoon, it's just going to fade the moisture out of your pot. Whereas this, we decided specifically kind of a guideline. So this is a bit of moisture retention. It's formulated so this, if we're doing raised bed, container, probably supposed to be one to as far as manure, if you are going to use manure, you can kind Apple. And you want to do that. Basically, you put the manure down, and then you want to wait about weeks before you actually plant directly into that, because manure is hot. If you spread your manure down right now and then plant directly into it, you kind of risk burning some of those the fresh roots. So spread it down, kind of till it in, give it some time to actually mix and kind of cool off. So perfect. That's the pot. So let me consult my notebook, because there's a lot going on in my mind, and I want to make sure I cover everything. So perfect. Okay. Fertilizing. If you have not fertilized yet for the spring, now is perfect time to fertilize. For anything that's just about any plant in your yard, the all-purpose 744, this stuff is going to be the best product to. I always equate this to being the steak and potatoes of your plant's nutrient intake. This is a really, really good general fertilizer. You can use it for everything from big deodar cedar, lilacs, just about anything and everything in your yard. Lawns, roses, shrubs, trees. If it grows, if it's green, give it some fertilizer. Now's the time. As the plants are kind of starting to wake up in winter, they're hungry. You wake up in the morning, you need breakfast, so do your plants. So yeah, good fertilizer will go a long ways to really help help those plants along, get them started off on the right route for springtime. So again, if it's just a general plant, just about anything in your yard, the all-purpose 744, this is going to be the best bet to go with. If you have something that's fruiting, we have our own specific fertilizer specifically for fruit trees. This is our fruit and veggie fertilizer. What sets this fertilizer apart from this one is most fertilizers you're probably familiar with have 3 numbers. This one, for example, is 744. Quite commonly, you'll see like 10, 10, 10. So those are always going to be synthetics, miracle grows, etc. This one has 4 numbers instead of 3. It's a 6447. That 7 on the end is added calcium. Without calcium, that's really what your plants need in order to produce good, hardy fruit. If your tree, or let's say your peach tree or your tomato plant, if they're deficient in calcium, they aren't going to be fruiting for you. So, sorry, I just realized I still have my radio on. Let me pull that up. All right. So yeah, that's just kind of some basic stuff. Wanted to go over that, kind of get that. And kind of throughout this, I stayed up late last night, kind of researching some fun facts about hummingbirds. So I'll try and speckle those in throughout the class too. And just to kind of let everyone know, this class is primarily designed to kind of show you some different ideas on as far as getting your yard set up as a hummingbird oasis. Or it's just a good way to help encourage new growth, new life, help set your garden up for the pollinators. So yeah, let's see. Anyone in here have a guess at how many times a hummingbird flaps its wings in a second?
Several.
It's several, absolutely. So hummingbirds can flap their wings up to 30 times in a second, which is just incredible. I mean, you see them going like this, but to actually be doing that 30 times in a second is just it's awesome. They're incredibly neat little creatures. Their heart rate resting can be anywhere from about 500. When they're buzzing around, they can go up to 1,000 beats per minute on their heart rate. For being such a tiny little creature, they are absolutely incredible. Really quick moving little birds. It's also the only species of bird that can actually fly backwards. Kind of another little fun fact. So now going into and we're going to circle back, go back into some more products as we go. But just to start off, there's kind of 3 things that you, as far as plants, that you'll want to more or less have in your yard or have in your hummingbird oasis to help encourage them to come in. So the main thing is they're going to need something large, something big to nest in. Typically, an evergreen tree is fantastic for this. for the purpose of this class, I brought out a Theodore cedar. These ones, so I know this guy's still a little small right now. This is going to be pretty much the largest tree as far as the evergreens that we sell here at Waters. Full size, these can get 40, 50, up to 60 feet tall, about 40 foot wide at the base. They are fantastic evergreens, very, very hardy in our climate, in our area. It's just one of those trees that tends to do well just about anywhere you put it. Full sun, phenomenal tree. So, and these, especially, you know, you probably saw in the parking lot, we've got some great big giant ones of these. These are wonderful trees just for the hummingbirds to build their nest. You know, they can be high off the ground, sheltered, protected from any of the predators in order to nest or just to rest for the night. So big trees, you know, whether it's a deodar cedar like this, juniper is another awesome option. You could go with the Spartan juniper, Hollywood. I mean, just about any big evergreen trees. Arizona cypress, that's another one of my personal favorites just because it does so well here in our climate. So big, large evergreen tree, just somewhere where they can stay protected at night and get out of the way of the other predators. So big trees, that's kind of the initial thing that they're going to start looking for when they see their yard and they decide that's a place they want to hunker down. They're going to be looking for a big tree to start nesting in. From there, some smaller, kind of medium size, intermittent. For this example, I brought the common lilac. These are phenomenal. You can see this one is just starting to kind of bud out and start leafing out for the springtime. This common lilac, this is the traditional, we also call it your grandma's lilac. I know my grandmother had these, and I'm sure just about everyone else in here did as well. This one here will get about 12 feet tall, 10 to 12 feet tall and wide. So this will be a giant shrub. They're very quick growing, just phenomenal. It's one of those plants that it flowers springtime. They usually hold on to their blooms kind of spring up until the summer. Sometimes even a little bit more if you're using the right fertilizers. So this is another good one. You know, once it's leafed out, hummingbirds can start nesting in here as well. So yes, this is just kind of a good intermediate level shrub. You know, it's not going to be the full size evergreen tree like that deodar cedar, but here, let me slide this over just so the camera can get a good view of it as well. So yes, this is the common lilac. Plenty of other varieties of lilacs that you can use as well. Oh, good question. So she asked, lilacs, are they kind of full sun or partial shade plants? They are full sun. In fact, we recommend, and here at the Garden Center, we kind of classify full sun as being anywhere that's 6 hours or more of sun per day. So as long as this is getting 6 hours or more, you should get the full blooms. If it's a little bit less than that, it probably won't bloom quite as prolifically. It should still grow fine, but yeah, it's a full sun plant. They can take the heat, they can take the cold. It's just a very hardy, phenomenal grower here. So
can they take the wind?
They can take the wind as well. Although going off of that, so she just asked about wind with the lilacs. That is something I wanted to mention kind of specifically for this class as far as the hummingbirds go, is the best areas to kind of set your yard up. You know, if you really want an area that you want to attract and bring the hummingbirds in, they do prefer areas that are a little bit sheltered or protected from the wind. So typically here in Prescott, the majority of the wind that we get comes from the south. And I say Prescott, I mean Tri-City area, you know, whether you're Prescott Valley, Chino Valley. So a lot of times, you know, if you plant or kind of set this area up on a north or east side of a house, you can kind of use that house or the structure to block some of the wind. You know, hummingbirds are tiny little creatures. They don't want to be in the 30-mile-an-hour gusts that we get here. They'll end up in your neighbor's yard. So yes, areas that are a little bit more sheltered, protected, areas, a lot of places around town here have yards will have large boulders or kind of rock gardens. That can be another good area.
just where they can kind of get out of the way of, just being in the middle of the hot sun all day and just be exposed to the elements. That being said, hummingbirds do like the warmth. So warmer areas, they tend to kind of gravitate towards them, as do most of the flowers that are in bloom. So, all right, that's kind of the common lilac. And this one too, neat thing about the common lilacs or the grandma's lilacs is, there's, I think right now we probably have, 5 to 10 different varieties of lilacs in stock. There's probably over 100 varieties of lilacs out there. But most of the lilacs, even the specialty ones, like this bloomerang lilac, which we'll get into here in a minute, they all use common lilac roots. So these are actually grafted plants that utilize the root system off your common traditional lilacs. Just kind of a fun little tidbit about how these plants are actually grown and cultivated. So, all right, that's a big old common lilac. Again, this one, you're looking probably around 8 to 10 foot tall, or 8 to 12 foot tall and wide. So very large shrub. If you have a larger area, they fill in fantastic. And I wish these were in bloom right now so y'all could smell it. They are just wonderful, very, very fragrant. And the hummingbirds love them, as do we. So now, while we're talking about lilacs, I should mention the bloomerang. As said, we've got quite a few different varieties of these lilac plants. The bloomerang is kind of my personal go-to or my personal favorite because as the name implies, boomerang, this one comes back, meaning that this one will actually flower multiple times per season. Traditional lilacs are, essentially just kind of spring, maybe into the summer. The bloomerangs, as long as it's happy and fertilized well, you should get 3 full good blooms out of it per year. So spring, summer, even into the fall. They are phenomenal plants. There are quite a few different varieties, as I said. This one will stay quite a bit smaller, more compact than the common lilac. So, if you want the color and the fragrance and just a good plant to help attract those, but you don't have the space for a 12-foot tall or 12-foot wide shrub, this specific one here, the bloomerang dark purple, you're going to stay 4 to 6 foot tall and wide. So quite a bit more compact. And we've got a great selection of these. We have ones that stay even a little bit smaller than this, and all the way up to that's kind of the full size with that 12-foot tall and wide. So huge variety. Again, just lilac's one of those phenomenal plants. They do very, very well here in our area, our climate, and all the critters love them. Whether it's hummingbirds, bees, butterflies, it's a great plant to help attract pollinators into your yard. So, bloomerang lilac. So, now, kind of going off that, plants that will help attract or kind of setting your yard up for the hummingbird oasis. The best way to plant for those is going to be swaths of color. You don't want, just one pretty plant over here and one way over here. If you're able to actually plant in kind of larger, try to set this up kind of as an example here. You see you've got a pretty good selection. There's a big variety of different plants. That's going to be kind of the best way to do it. Hummingbirds will, they see the bright, pretty colors. Typically and traditionally, they go for reds and oranges, but they'll go for just about any color. So if you plant like this, they may go straight for that red snapdragon towards the back, and then from there they'll kind of bounce around and work kind of throughout your flowering yard. So yes, swaths of color or just kind of clusters of bright plants. Another good thing you can do for them, and this is kind of general for any of the pollinators, is to plant with plants that are going to flower at different times throughout the season. So, for example, right over here, we've got the forsythia. These ones are awesome plants. You've probably seen them around town. It's just about, all the other plants this time of year are still just kind of waking up. This guy's already in full bloom. I mean, these are wonderful. Forsythia is pretty much the earliest or one of the earliest plants to start flowering in the springtime. So you get something like this in, you're already start to attract those pollinators, and then this will flower kind of, typically I'd say January, February, all the way through March. And then as this one stops to kind of ceases flowering and just puts off its traditional green foliage, you'll have other plants in the yard that are starting to come out, say your roses, or here obviously within another couple weeks, all the lilacs are going to start going into bloom. So just kind of staggering the blooming cycle of your plants is a great way to attract pollinators in the first place, and then to keep them around throughout the season. Because if you have a yard just full of forsythia, you'll bring in all the pollinators in the springtime or early spring, and then you aren't going to have anything else to really attract them. So just staggering the bloom cycle of plants is a fantastic way to attract the pollinators and then keep them around. So that's that.
Is that one still full sun?
Yes, great question. So she asked about the forsythia, if it's a full sun plant, and yes, it will take the full sun. They can take some shade, but again, it's like the lilac. As long as it gets 6 hours or more of sun per day, it should be happy, and you should get the full blooms. So while we're speaking of blooms, already kind of covered the general fertilizers, the all-purpose and our fruit and veggie fertilizers. As I said, think of those as being like the steak and potatoes of the plant's nutrient intake. Now, if you want to give it kind of a shot of coffee in the morning or espresso, help wake it up and really get it to bloom and flower, we have the flower power. This stuff here is awesome at getting just about anything to flower and to keep flowering. I've kept pansies alive pretty much all summer long and flowering just by using this stuff here. You can use it for anything and everything that flowers. In fact, some folks will even use this for, say, your veggies, like tomato plants, because obviously the more flowers and buds you have on a tomato plant, ultimately the more tomatoes you will get later on into the springtime. This stuff, it's you can kind of hear it in here. It's basically a powder or very fine granular. All you have to do with this is mix this in with water. There's a little scoop in here. So 1 scoop in with a gallon of water. Use that every two weeks when you are just doing your regular water. You can do it in a regular watering can, 5-gallon bucket. Kind of depends on what you're trying to water. But this stuff is fantastic. It will make just about anything flower and keep flowering throughout the season, which is exactly what you want in order to bring in those pollinators. Also want to talk a little bit about root and grow. Again, I know a lot of these products are kind of carried over. Most of you are probably familiar, but for anyone who isn't, or just a bit of a refresher, these are all just products that we really, really stand by here in this area, because our soil, our nutrients here, it leaves a lot to be desired for, especially we get all the folks. I just moved here from California or from Washington or etc. It can be a lot trickier to grow things here in our hot desert kind of mountain climate than what a lot of you are used to. So these products do exist for a reason, and it's stuff that we all use, and it just really goes a long ways to help promote the overall health. So root and grow, anytime you're planting something new, whether it's a big deodar cedar or even just a little marigold like this guy, root and grow is fantastic stuff just to help alleviate the transplant shock, the stress associated with that. You can also use this, heat of the summer. If you put in, say, that deodar cedar, those trees love our winters. They do very well in the cold climates, but our summers, they're hot, they're stressful for a lot of these plants. This will go a long ways, if we get that week of 100+ degree weather in the middle of summer. This will go a long ways just to kind of help acclimate the plant, get the root system a little bit more ready to carry the weight of the tree throughout the warm season or anytime it's stressed out. So root and grow, water soluble, kind of like the flower power. Just mix it in with your water. You do 2 ounces in with a gallon of water, and we recommend doing this once every 2 weeks, kind of until you start seeing your plant pull out of its shock or stress, where it just starts looking happier for you. really good stuff. All right. Consult the notes and find another fun little hummingbird. It's back. So something also neat is hummingbirds. As I was talking about, kind of planting in swaths or pathways for these hummingbirds. They actually have phenomenal memories, and they will go day after day, week after week, kind of in more or less the same pattern of pollinizing. So it's hummingbirds coming through here. You might hit the rhododendron this morning, and then go onto that peach tree, and then the forsythia, and they will kind of go with the same pathways, the same areas, and just bounce around to different plants throughout their ventures. They have incredibly fast metabolisms. In fact, each hummingbird needs to consume basically right around half of its body weight in nectar per day. So they are very, very, you always see them buzzing around. That's because they really need to eat. If they don't eat, they go into kind of a hibernation where their heart rate will drop real low. They basically just kind of go dormant until either it warms up, you'll see that in cold weather, or they'll just kind of go dormant and basically put a pause to their life cycle for whether a day or a couple of days. So, yeah, that's.
Do they stay up here all winter?
So yes, she asked if hummingbirds stay up here all winter. Here in Prescott, I believe they do kind of migrate a little bit. Colder climates, they tend to migrate a bit more.
I saw one in the snow the other day. I felt bad.
Yes. So they should actually pretty much stay around throughout the winter. That does kind of go up to or kind of speak towards having these big scaffolding plants, or like this Theodore cedar, where they have a place to nest and help winter over. Kind of a cool fact. So you said you saw one just laying in the snow.
Just a couple of weeks ago when it was snowing on the patio, and I thought, "Put down."
Yeah. So it probably fell down, and hopefully he's back up and buzzing around right now. Kind of a neat fact when I mentioned that they go into that kind of dormant phase, or they'll take a break if it gets real cold, or if they don't get the nutrients that they require for the day. They will actually hang upside down, kind of like bats, in trees like this, and to help keep them from falling down, because they do go sort of dormant. They actually have tendons in their feet that will clamp and lock onto whatever they're hanging onto, so they don't just fall out. So, yeah, kind of a neat little fact. Hummingbirds are incredible creatures. So, perfect. From here, I'll talk a little bit more about some plants. I shouldn't say that, but the best plants are traditional ones that a lot of folks think of as being good plants to help attract the pollinators, hummingbirds specifically, are plants that flower red or orange. They are very color sensitive, and seeing that, it's kind of like the neon sign to a diner that, hey, there's food here, and it's good sweet nectar. So this I wanted to talk about. We just started getting these in for the springtime. This is the Tangerine Beauty Crossvine. Any of the flowering vines tend to be fantastic to help attract the pollinators. This one I chose specifically because you do get kind of that reddish orange flower. Neat thing too about this one is it's a semi-evergreen plant here in Prescott, meaning that for the most part, it tends to keep the majority of their leaves year-round. That being said, if we do get a really cold winter or a cold snap throughout the winter, it may drop off some of its leaves, but they'll pop right back in the springtime. Any flower with kind of this trumpet shape is typically what the hummingbirds gravitate towards specifically, because they have those long beaks, and they actually have tongues that extrude from their beaks about the same length as their beak, which will go all the way back in here to get that nectar. So anything with a trumpet-shaped flower, again, this is the crossvine. These are fantastic, full size. It will grow, multiple feet per year, probably close to 5 to 10 feet if it's real happy. It will trellis up. It can go on rock walls, grow up trees. Just about anywhere you put it, these really seem to take off. So that's the crossvine. This also has a real fun Latin name. It's called bignonia. Kind of a fun word to say. It's Bignonia, bignonia. So yeah, that's the tangerine beauty crossvine. Yeah, set this guy right back up here, and talk about another vine, or another two vines that also tend to do real well for hummingbirds specifically, although any pollinator it will really help out. So, honeysuckle. I'm sure most of you are familiar. These plants grow just about anywhere here in the U.S. And it's one of those you put it in, and they usually just take off like that. They're fantastic. I have two varieties here. We do carry a handful of different varieties of these, and we're just kind of starting to get these in for the springtime. So this little guy right here is the Hall's Japanese honeysuckle. This is the kind of traditional honeysuckle that most of you are probably familiar with the red and white, or sorry, excuse me, yellow and white flowers. Very common. Again, trumpet-shaped flowers, which is going to be the best bet to really help attract those hummingbirds specifically, but any pollinator. Now, this guy right here, a little bit larger, and you can see this is already starting to bloom out for you. This one's called the Gold Flame Honeysuckle. The fragrance on both of these is fantastic and very, very quick growing, multiple feet per year. You know, if you're looking for something to cover up a trellis or a lattice or a chain link fence, either one of these, including that crossvine, are awesome plants just to really fill in. You can use these for privacy. You can use them to kind of help make a bit of a wind block. Just about anything and everything. It's a real good party plant to go with in most situations. So, yep, honeysuckle, awesome plants.
Are they good for, and they're good for wind?
Yes, yeah.
And
So,
sun, and we're talking Golden weather here now.
yep. So she was saying out in Paulden, she was asking about these. Absolutely, you can grow these out there just
Okay.
fine. They'll take the sun. In fact, they are full sun plants, so they do prefer, you know, at least 6 hours of sun per day. They can take the wind. You can use it to kind of help even as a little bit of a windbreak, you know, if you have a chain link fence or a lattice or something, just to kind of section off or block off a little bit of an area. So yeah, as I mentioned, you can plant these and just about anywhere you put them, they usually tend to take off real well. So that's the honeysuckles.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Those are, of course, as I mentioned, full sun plants. So we'll kind of stay along the same lines of other plants that tend to do real well in full sun. And then I do have a couple of plants that prefer shadier areas too, which we'll get into in a little while. But this here is salvia, also known as autumn sage, a very, very popular common plant around here. We carry it pretty much from now all the way up until, I'd say October. And neat thing is they will bloom from pretty much now all the way up until October, or until we get our first kind of cold freeze, which typically is right around Halloween if you're anywhere in this Tri-City, Prescott area. These shrubs are perennial, meaning that during the winter, they typically kind of tend to die back. You know, you'll have a couple sticks kind of root level or a couple inches above the ground. And then each spring, they'll come out just like this. By the end of the summer, they'll be right around 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide, very quick growing plants. They flower basically all season long. So this one here is the radio red. There's quite a few different varieties. We get a good selection of color. This was just a traditional bright red one. Although we do have, let's see, right over here. This one here. Oh, I grabbed two radio reds. I meant to grab, we also have one called the Hog Lips, which is one of my personal favorites. It gets red and white flowers. And then we have some also that will flower purple. I don't think we have those in white yet, but we will be getting those in here within the next few weeks. Any of the salvias are fantastic plants. They'll take the full sun, they'll take the heat. It's just one of those plants that, again, like the honeysuckle, just about anywhere you plant it here, they usually tend to take off and really thrive. So, Again, most of these salvias are going to stay right around 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide. Although I do have this variety of salvia, which is a newer one for us to start carrying. This one is called the Ozo Blue. This will get about 5 foot tall, 5 foot wide, so a little bit larger than the other ones. Again, this one kind of bluish purple flowers, and just like the other ones, it'll take off, it'll grow real large into that nice big shrub by the end of the summer, and then over winter, kind of dies back and just rinse and repeat each year. It'll come right back up bigger and stronger. So, question?
Is now the time to also be on a shape those to do it? Because I have about 6 of them.
Yes.
2 of them are kind of dead looking, and some of them are.
Gotcha. Yeah, so she was asking with the salvias or autumn sage, is now the time to trim those back or shape them? Absolutely. If you do want to kind of trim it back or cut it back from its size last year or just do some pruning on it, go ahead and do it now. I know these ones right now are kind of leafed out and they're ready to go. Chances are most of the ones actually planted in your yard are going to be a little ways behind this, so they probably aren't quite fully leafed out yet or quite popping up for the springtime. So yes, now is the time to go ahead and cut those back right before they start waking up.
Can all of these be put in the ground now?
Absolutely, yes. So she asked if all these are ready to plant right now, and yes, if we have it here at the garden center, you can put it in the ground. Exception being for anyone who's has a greenhouse or is starting to get your veggie gardens ready. We did this past week get our first shipment of tomatoes and basil in. Those plants are very kind of finicky with the cooler weather. You know, last night we did get a freeze. Those are plants that you'll either want to keep in a greenhouse, say a kitchen window, you know, just somewhere as long as we're getting below 45 degrees at night, they'll want to be inside and protected from that cooler weather. So, but you can plant any of these other ones right now. Now is a great time of year to get them in the ground. And, you know, there's that old joke with trees. It's the best time to plant a tree was last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You know, it's so if you haven't planted a tree, now is the time. Okay. Speaking of trees, this one is too pretty not to talk about. This is a dwarf peach. Now, I didn't speak about dwarf peaches last week in the class, and we'll probably continue speaking about them because it's just such a neat little tree. These typically, because it's a true dwarf, should expect to get right around 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide when it's full grown, which is awesome because it means that you can always cover it. You know, it's not going to be one of those semi-dwarf trees that gets 15 to 20 or a full-size tree that you have to worry about, you know, trying to get frost cloth over it if you get a real cold snap when it's budded out. Or you aren't going to need a ladder to go up and pick the fruit or one of those cherry pickers. You can go right up to this, even when it's full grown, just pull the fruit right off. Speaking of fruit, these put off awesome fruit. For being such a small little tree, these tend to be some of the biggest, juiciest fruits that you get on most of the peach or nectarine trees. So just an awesome little tree. Wanted to mention this. They typically, you can grow it just fine in the ground, or you can put it into a container, you know, a large pot, and they'll do just fine in there as well. Question?
So they get about 6 feet tall, 3 feet, but 3 feet, 6 foot.
6 foot tall. About 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide.
How long does it reach? So it reaches maturity.
From this size here, I'd say you're probably 5 to 7 years or so. And of course, that's going to depend on watering and whether it's in the ground or into a container. If you plant it in the ground, you'll want to use mulch. This is our soil amendment designed specifically for our native soil. If you go into a container, pretty self-explanatory, but potting soil is going to be the best bet for that. So she asked how long before it fruits. So cool thing with these, most of these by the end of the season will actually put some fruit on, even being this small size. That being said, oh, look at that, we got a bird. We don't pay him, I swear. So yeah, going back to the question about fruit. Most of these will actually start to produce this first year, especially if you're using some of the fruit and veggie fertilizer. Most of these, we do recommend, because it's such a small little tree and it has the tiny little branches that aren't quite ready to support a full fruit yet, we do recommend pulling that fruit off. If you have some fruit, say on a larger branch, you can leave that. I always, if it's starting to produce, I'd want to eat fruit first year. I'm sure most of you would as well. But majority of those fruits, just kind of pull them off, let the tree focus on growing out, getting established, and being able to kind of build those scaffolding branches before it actually has to worry about producing and fruiting for you. So.
And what's is that full size?
Yes, she has some requirements. Again, 6 hours or more should get you pretty much maximum fruit production with these. So, and flowers, again, these are going to be wonderful for pollinators, whether it's birds, hummingbirds, butterflies, just about anything. You'll see them buzzing around all these. So. Yeah. Talk about another tree. This one here is, as I was saying, kind of the medium-sized trees. This is another fantastic tree that you can use to help out your hummingbirds or your pollinator gardens. This is a forest pansy redbud. There's quite a few different varieties of redbuds, and they're easy to spot because right now they're just about all in full bloom. They are just beautiful trees. This one, full size, should get right around 20 foot tall, 20 foot wide. Although we do, and nice thing too with the redbuds, it tends to be one of the more compact trees. 20 to 25 foot tall is usually kind of the maximum size that these get. And we also have some varieties that stay even smaller, even more compact. There's one called the Ruby Falls Weeping Redbud that usually only gets about 8 foot tall, 6 foot wide or so, much more compact if you don't have the space for a large tree, but you still want a real pretty, kind of nice specimen looking tree that puts off some good flowers this time of year. So this specific one is the forest pansy redbud. Any of the redbuds are fantastic trees. You'll find them pretty much kitty cornered, so just straight out this greenhouse. And as I said, they're easy to spot because they're just about all in full bloom right now. And again, we've got a pretty good selection of these. So now another tree to talk about, the magnolias. So last week I talked about the black tulip magnolia. That one was pretty much in full bloom, and by the end of the day after that class, we had sold out of all of them. We only get a handful of magnolias in per year. There's not the most common plant, and the growers only have a handful available for us to actually bring in. So this one, the Elizabeth magnolia, is the last one we have in stock. It's just starting to kind of bloom out. This flower here, within the next couple of days, will open fully. The fragrance on these is incredible. I really encourage everyone after class, please come up, sniff it. It's wonderful, and you can see as soon as you smell it, you can see why the pollinators will go after it. This tree specifically, about 40 foot tall, 20 foot wide when it's full grown. So this is going to be a larger tree. That being said, we have a couple other varieties of magnolias in the lower greenhouse that do tend to stay a bit more compact if you don't have the full size or space for one like this.
I noticed out there on the tags it says like 800 hours. What is that referring to?
Yes. So a lot of times, if she was asking about tags, we'll say a specific amount of hours. You'll see that on magnolias or fruit trees. That's the chill hours. So each tree will have a specific amount of time that it has to be below 45 degrees over the winter before it will actually start to bloom out in the springtime. So typically you see that kind of mostly on fruit trees, and I can illustrate with this little guy right here. So if you look on the tag on this Bonanza miniature peach, this says 250 or fewer hours below 45 degrees. Most of the peach trees tend to have lower chill hours. Some trees, say like apple trees, typically have higher chill hours. You can see, I'd say anywhere, usually from 250 chill hours all the way up to 1,000 to 1,200 chill hours. Basically, what that means and how you kind of equate that to your garden is the lower the chill hours, the sooner it has a chance of starting to bloom out and bud in the springtime. Now, that can be a blessing. It can also be a little bit of a curse here, just because here in Prescott or this area, we always tend to get late freezes or late frosts. Right now it's early March, but we had a freeze last night down to right around 30 degrees here at the garden center. So if you do get a real cold snap, you do risk losing some of those blooms if it's a lower chill hour plant. Say like an apple tree, which may be closer to 1,000 chill hours, you'll see those typically you have later on into the season before they actually start to bloom and bud out. So you have less risk of losing those flowers or buds if we do get a cold snap kind of throughout the springtime. So yeah, quick little lesson on the chill hours. So, and I didn't bring anything, or I didn't bring it up here, but something kind of while we're talking about, freezes and cold snaps, frost cloth. It's a product that we sell a whole lot of each year, especially this time. Anything that you have that's, say like that peach tree, let's say you check the forecast and next week we're getting snow, which I know we aren't, thankfully. We should have some beautiful weather next week. But, for example, let's say we're getting snow and next week it's going to be 20 degrees at night. If you want to help prevent, losing your buds and blooms, frost cloth is an awesome way to kind of help insulate those plants. It's just a thin, breathable membrane, but it's just enough usually to kind of keep the plant a little bit happier, keep it going throughout the cold snaps. That being said, I'd be hesitant, putting a tomato out and let it try and winter over it under frost cloth in 20-degree weather. But peach trees, red buds, if you're just trying to kind of keep those blooms around, frost cloth is a good way to go. So. Yes, she asked if the frost cloth can touch the plant. What we typically do is just cover the plant, and then I always recommend, tying it down to where it's not going to actually blow off if we do get a gust or a storm. So, but yes, you can just cover the plant. It will not harm the plant. That's why we choose a thin, breathable fabric. The one thing you don't want to do is, get a white or black trash bag, because that's not breathable. You're going to trap the moisture inside, and then that will kind of exacerbate any freezing. So, okay, we are going quick. Time's flying. So, try and talk about a couple more of these beautiful flowers that I brought up. This is one that I mentioned last week. This is kind of going into some of the shape of plants, since we only have a couple minutes left. This one here is called the PJM rhododendron. These are fantastic plants. Anyone, as I mentioned, we get a lot of folks who moved here from California, Washington, etc. Especially in Washington, these are a dime a dozen. You'll see them all over, and in fact, most places in the U.S. Here in Arizona, you can grow them just fine, or at least this area. That being said, it's a shade plant here. So by that, we really mean, it can take morning sun. In fact, it will need a little bit of morning sun to get up and start blooming. However, usually, 11 a.m., noon onwards throughout the afternoon, they're going to need pretty much full shade because our hot afternoon sun here in northern Arizona can be quite brutal. So, little tidbit about those. These are phenomenal plants. They're evergreen, so you get to look at something pretty all year long. And then flowering, this is my personal favorite. The flowers on this are just incredible. And anyone who was here last week's class, I had mentioned that I was curious about the PJM, because we see all sorts of funky plant names, and PJM, that just looks like initials. It actually is initials. It stands for Peter John Mezet. And that was the original gentleman who kind of cultivated or hybridized this plant back in 1945 in Massachusetts. So kind of a cool little fact of history with this. It actually is initials, and it just stands for the the gentleman's name who kind of came up with this specific variety. Oh, yes. Yeah, she asked if you can grow this in a pot. Absolutely. This specific variety, and granted, we've got our whole lower greenhouse is full of all sorts of different rhododendrons right now. This specific one, you're going to get right around 5 foot tall, up to 6 foot wide. So I would recommend going to a larger pot, just so you aren't going to be repotting it here in another year or 2 years down the road. So if you put it into something large enough for it to actually kind of grow to full size in, absolutely. So yes, you can grow a pot in the ground. Just again, make sure it's getting morning sun and afternoon shade. Now, in the same kind of family as rhododendrons, you have azaleas. Typically, azaleas, this is a good example. You can see the foliage tends to stay a little bit smaller, and the plants, in general, tend to stay a little bit smaller than their bigger brothers, rhododendrons. Again, evergreen, so you get something pretty to look at year-round, and these are really neat with kind of the darker green foliage. This variety here, it's only going to stay about 1 foot tall, but it will spread up to around 3 feet wide, so 2 to 3 foot wide. So kind of a lower growing mounting plant, but beautiful, beautiful red, kind of reddish pink flowers on this one. Awesome for the pollinators or just adding that splash of color to your yard. So again, morning sun, afternoon shade for any of the rhododendrons, azaleas. That also goes into hydrangeas. I don't think we've got any hydrangeas in quite yet, but that's another one that we'll be getting here probably within the next few weeks. So, all right. Then, gosh, yeah, we've been right along. Some other awesome little plants to kind of spruce up your yard or help out your pollinator gardens this time of year. Any of the snapdragons, ranunculus, these ones are phenomenal. We just got these in off the truck. In fact, the colors on these are incredible. You'll find them right kind of behind, closer towards the entrance door that you all came in through. But the flowers on these are just beautiful. They tend to stay kind of small, usually right around 1 foot tall, 1 foot wide. And yeah, they'll start flowering this time of year and kind of go up until we start getting real hot throughout the summer. So awesome plant. Pollinators love them. We love them because they're so pretty. So kind of a good one to go. She was asking annual or perennial. They typically are annuals, but they kind of like the marigolds. They tend to come back real good kind of year after year, repeat. So yes, mentioning marigolds, these are another one that tend to do real well for any of the pollinator gardens. Again, reds, oranges typically attract the hummingbirds, the bees, butterflies. So you almost always get that with the marigolds. Another nice thing with these is they tend to be very good at repelling rodents and a lot of the other critters that you don't want in your gardens. Yes, mosquitoes, a lot of the insects. These are wonderful plants. They are annuals, but anyone who's grown these, you'll know that typically you plant it, it'll die off over the winter, and they are so good about reseeding that typically you'll just kind of continue getting these coming back year after year. So wonderful plants. Also, since I just mentioned insects and mosquitoes, that's another, and this is the hummingbird class, that is another very important part of hummingbirds' diets are insects. It's not all just sweet nectar for them. In order for them to bulk up and migrate and kind of help winter them over, they do actually go for insects. They'll eat everything from aphids, thrips, up to some spiders. So they're awesome to have around because they do help with the insect control. That being said, one thing, if you are really kind of setting your yard up or an area specifically to bring in these pollinators, please be very careful as to which products you're using as far as insecticides, because if you're killing off the insects and then the hummingbirds are going after that, you can kind of risk transferring the insecticides up that food chain. So that being said, try and kind of urge everyone, if you are doing something specific for them, try and stick to the more organic side. Horticultural oil, I thought I up here, but I'm not seeing it right now. That is a very good insecticide to use this time of year because you're smothering the insect as opposed to actually using a harsh product to kill it because it is an oil-based product. So that's a good one to use if, just trying to keep some of the bugs at bay as your plants start coming out for the season. Horticultural oil is the product you want to spray down now. So, questions, sir?
Deer, I assume all of these flowers are any of them a little bit more resistant.
Yeah, good question. So he was asking about deer resistance. It's anyone here in the area, we pretty much have deer coming and going throughout the yard. A lot of these tend to be kind of more resistant. Snapdragons, for example. Just about all the critters basically leave these alone. Same with marigolds. Most of the critters, again, usually kind of stay away, steer clear of these. Some plants, the deer will go after and just get the fresh growth right off. Anything specific, we do have our deer and javelina and rabbit resistant list inside. Those are print offs, so you can find them directly on our website or just ask the cashiers. And we can usually give you a hard copy and then kind of walk you around the garden center and show you the plants because just to associate the name with what the plant actually looks like. So, all right.
Are snapdragons full sun?
Yes, she was asking snapdragons full sun. Yes, these are full sun again, pretty much 6 hours per day, and they're fantastic. They'll bloom all spring long. Typically, when we really start to heat up, they'll kind of take a break, and then in the fall, kind of leading from fall up until the winter, we'll get them in again, and you can usually grow them just fine then as well. So, all right. Well, I know there's still a couple more plants up here, but that puts us right at 10:30. So if you have any more questions, yes, this was a plant that we covered last week as well. This is the candy tuft. This is an awesome little perennial. Come back year after year. That stays nice and compact, right around foot tall, foot wide. Awesome little plant, just to kind of add that splash of brightness into your yard. Yes, kind of a lower growing. The tag is saying 10 inches tall, 12 inches wide, so right around a foot by foot. So just a small little mounding shrub. And flowers on these pretty much all spring. So perfect. Well, we will kind of include the majority of class, but feel free to stick around or just ask questions. If you have questions on anything else you see up here, feel free to come on up. And otherwise, thank you all for coming out. And, absolutely.
I have peas, lettuce.
Give me
Okay.
just a sec.
Yeah.